Hello and welcome to Atop the Fourth Wall, where bad comics burn. And welcome, my friends, to the long-awaited return of Secret Origins Month. We're back! And we're going obscure this time to start with. Sort of. Peacemaker. My plan to review Peacemaker's first appearance was that there was going to be a lot more separation between my review of the two Peacemaker episodes and this one. But hey, changes in the schedule can result in funny things. And indeed, while Peacemaker has been pushed into the limelight more thanks to John Cena's performance in the Suicide Squad and his own TV show, Peacemaker as a character has always been seen as more a joke because of his "he loves peace so much he's willing to fight for it" tagline and, well, the goofy helmet. And I just don't know why the helmet. If it was just like a normal helmet, it wouldn't be as big an issue. But no, gotta have this big, bulky, round fin thing around the top. Like he had a perm he was trying to preserve under there. And unfortunately, his obscurity until more recent times means that, well, no one can really ask his creators these days why the helmet was designed like that, or any other inspirations for how he was made, since sadly both passed away in the early 2000s. I can tell you that Peacemaker comes to us from artist Pat Boyette, a prolific and talented artist whose career up until his comics was in radio and voiceover, but eventually decided to give comics art a try and cold-called Charlton Comics to see if they accepted samples. On the writing side, though, was Joe Gill, who could probably be considered the writer equivalent of Jack Kirby, in that he wrote so much and so quickly, cranking out an entire full-length comic in a single day and multiple issues worth in a week. Gill started at Timely Comics, Marvel's predecessor, before eventually moving on to Charlton in the 50s, where he also co-created Captain Atom alongside Steve Ditko. His speed made him Charlton's primary staff writer for 30 years until Charlton's closing in 1986. As far as we know, Peacemaker was just one of many, many things he worked on at the company, and I can't find anything more about him or what went into his creation. But hey, we can still enjoy the character as he was initially presented, so let's dig into Fightin' 5 number 40, the first appearance of the Peacemaker.
Welcome to Atop the Fourth Wall, where bad comics burn. Linkara's gonna teach you all a lesson you won't learn. What's with these awkward subjects? What's all this art so rubbish? To anyone who's had a bad comic published, it could be your turn. Linkara, he is a man punch, sporadically a grouch. Linkara, he has his own spaceship, but he's always on his couch. Linkara, ghosts, gods, a universe in flux. Linkara, this comic sucks. Linkara.
Peacemaker, as you can imagine, is not the headliner of this book, instead going to an espionage and paramilitary team known as the Fightin' 5, themselves having taken over the book's numbering since issue 28. Previously, the book was called Space War. With Charlton Comics, I would not be surprised if it turned out they only ever published one ongoing series and they just kept renaming it. Normally, since this cover has nothing to do with Peacemaker, I'd skip it, but well, I think this deserves a little attention, as we see two members of the team being menaced by a terrorist organization. What's this? Hank has turned on his comrades and joined the Agents of Death, dedicated enemies of and traitors to humanity, also known as generative AI shills. Points to that acronym, though. They may hate humanity and want to destroy us, but their marketing game is on point. Pity about their uniforms, though. I'm assuming the rest of the group is supposed to spell out death, but that just means you always need to line up in the right order when confronting the Fightin' 5, lest they make fun of their mortal enemies, Ethad. Funny thing about this book, though, I joked a second ago about the numbering and name change, but this book only lasted one more issue after this, at which point Peacemaker got his own solo series for a few issues, with the Fightin' 5 as a backup story. Always amusing when some other story in an old comic overtakes the original headliner. If I haven't mentioned this before, Green Lantern Alan Scott's dog ended up becoming the cover feature for his book near the end of its run. Anyway, let's finally meet Peacemaker. Introducing the Peacemaker, the latest in pacemaker technology. This is a man who detests war, violence, and the dreadful waste of human life in senseless conflicts between nations. On an interpersonal level, though, he will waste your ass. A man who loves peace so much that he is willing to fight for it. Unfortunately, he exclusively attacks diplomats, which is making his mission statement more complicated. This is the same man. You don't want to know where he's hiding the helmet. Occupation: envoy to the Geneva Arms Conference. A man dedicated to peace! He also sells anime acrylic keychains on Etsy as a side hustle. So yeah, Christopher Smith, aka Peacemaker, is on his way to Geneva and thinks about a situation brewing. The president is concerned with the border wars in South America. It totally distracts from the CIA-backed drug wars. These wars are being provoked. But by who? Of course! By Warmaker! He loved war so much he refused to fight for it! Wait. Smith is convinced no major powers are responsible for inflaming the border wars. The countries involved should be buying farm tools, staple foods, and building schools. Instead, they buy tanks and guns and bombers and kill each other in a war neither of them wants. It's a good thing we don't do that in America. It's a good thing we don't do that in America! As the plane lands, Smith considers who might be responsible. A man called Bork is rumored to have sold weapons to both nations. But that can't be true because his name is ridiculous. Okay. To be fair, it's a real surname, but there's just something so goofy sounding to say that Peacemaker's first enemy is called Bork. The villain of the story is the sound the Swedish chef makes. Smith is met by his secretary, Miss Blair, who has some new information about Bork's activities as of late. Bork is believed to have agents operating in the two countries, Mr. Smith. It was reported that they sabotaged buildings, bridges, and inflamed the governments, though he has released a statement that says that we are borking up the wrong tree. The two take a limousine out to some rural area, I guess, given the mountainside dirt road we see here. However, someone is expecting them. At this moment, Emil Bork, the suspected Warmaker, is waiting for Christopher Smith's limousine. He's been waiting 4 hours for this autograph. Bork's henchmen spot the car approaching and orders his two gunmen with him to destroy them. They fire on the limo, shooting explosive bullets, and the two, along with their driver, are either dead or unconscious. Bork orders his men to retrieve papers that Smith was carrying, and honestly in this panel it looks like he has a bullet hole in his head, which of course he does not. It would make for a very short story, I guess. Mind you, if you were hoping to retrieve papers that he had on him, maybe don't order your men to destroy the car or use explosive bullets! Still, the goons grab Smith's briefcase and open it up, but it seems Smith is prepared for this kind of attack, and the briefcase releases a deadly, odorless gas when opened, killing the would-be assassins. Bork in the background flees as Smith and Blair awaken and retrieve the briefcase. Precautionary device, Miss Blair, to ensure that these papers wouldn't fall into the wrong hands. Back at home, I replace it with pine-scented gas. The next day, Smith is attending a fancy dinner at the embassy, and he's introduced to Bork. What's unclear is what exactly the conference is about. Just an arms conference. But is that like, hey, we're trying to restrict guns, or a let's tell you all about these guns we're selling kind of conference? Either way, the artist alley for this really sucks, and the guidebooks are full of misprints in the schedule. Smith talks to Bork about how he apparently has extremely efficient rapid-fire weapons. You know of them, Mr. Smith? You are very well informed. There is an adage in your country which indicates that a little knowledge is a dangerous thing. Too much knowledge, Mr. Smith, can be fatal. That explains our education policies. Smith thinks about how the CIA suspects that Bork is plotting to start a brush fire war in the countries whose diplomats he's speaking to. Bork will use assassins, saboteurs, bribery, or any other methods to achieve his ends. I have only inadequate diplomatic and legal machinery to stop him. And the machinery is broken, and I'll void the contract if I try to repair it, making it illegal machinery. That night, Smith is at his private residence in the Swiss Alps. He considers how every attempt he's made through legitimate means to stop Bork has failed. He goes down into a cellar. Inside is an arsenal of the most potent weapons ever devised by man, including lawn darts, Galaxy Note 7s, and the Cybertruck. He has designed all of them, but as a man dedicated to peace and non-violence, Christopher Smith has sworn never to use any of them.
So it's a peace-loving death ray.
If Bork is permitted to continue, he will involve half the world in his senseless wars. I think that number's soft. We can include 80% in senseless wars, damn it! He must be stopped. And I cannot succeed with peaceful methods.
Oh boy, here I go killing again.
He starts taking off his clothes. I've resisted taking this step, but hardcore nudity is the only option I have left. No, of course, he thinks that violence can only be met with more violence, even if it's against everything he believes in. Which, you must not stand very strongly for then. I mean, he says he has no choice, but the entire point of saying you don't believe in violence is that you advocate that there is another choice. It's one thing to say, I don't want to have to do this, but sometimes there is no other viable way. It's another thing to say, I absolutely abhor violence and do not believe in it, and I stand against it completely. But I guess I might as well, since nothing else is working. I mean, that's really the problem with the loves peace so much he's willing to fight for it tagline. The utter hypocrisy that you believe that violence is a solution that you're willing to engage in if pushed enough. He puts on the Peacemaker outfit, which, as I said, if the helmet was without the big radius around the middle of it, would look fine. Would kind of make me think of him more like a Rocketeer or Commando Cody style of hero, especially since he's also about to deploy a jetpack. And so, although Christopher Smith has sworn never to use these implements of violence, he reluctantly assumes the role of the Peacemaker. He swore never to use them, except for when he uses them. And so he flies off, just kind of around in the hopes of running into Bork, which he soon does thanks to picking up a radio transmission. Said transmission reveals that 3 of the Peace Commission have been captured by him, and he traces the signal back to an airfield. He lands, and the goons on the ground open fire on him, but one is confused because he thinks he missed. Bork's operatives aren't missing. The Peacemaker wears a thin, pliable body armor which sheds ordinary bullets. But he couldn't have sleeves for it because what could stop these guns? As a man dedicated to peace and nonviolence, naturally he begins to beat the crap out of the goons. However, one of the henchmen approaches with a bazooka or something and demands he turn around so he can know who Peacemaker is. I've got the laser ray. I can destroy him down to the last molecule, but such action is against every instinct. I must do it! I've got no choice! And he fires his helmet laser at the bazooka. I had no choice! Except for this other choice, which was perfectly logical. Am I an idiot? He demands to know where Bork is, and the goon directs him to a jet bomber that's taking off. He flies off after the jet, but I guess he overshoots it, allowing the jet to get a clear shot at him. It fires a rocket, and he's able to detonate it with his helmet laser, but he's still close enough to the blast zone that it damages his jetpack. And so our comic ends with this declaration from our villain. The fool thought to foil me! Email Bork! Bork you, Peacemaker! Is this the end of the Peacemaker? Is his noble crusade finished before it has really begun? Don't miss the next exciting chapter of The Peacemaker in the next issue of Fighting 5. It was, in fact, the end of the Peacemaker, and his noble crusade was finished then and there. That's why they were advertising the next chapter of it. Anyway, this story is fine, it's just the character concept that's goofy. Admittedly, it doesn't help that it's only 10 pages. We don't really know how he started this crusade of his, why he decided to do this, a backstory or anything, but then again, that was pretty common for a first outing. Though admittedly, in those cases, they'd pretend like this wasn't the very first time we were seeing them. They wouldn't have put introducing the Peacemaker, it'd just be the Peacemaker or the like. Still, while there's some silliness and the morality is pretty simplistic, with arms dealers apparently being the only ones who can make countries go to war just by the presence of weapons, but the action isn't terrible, and we see that Peacemaker has some resources at his command. Mind you, perhaps the guy so dedicated to peace shouldn't have deadly weapons like nerve gas and destructo lasers, but like more non-lethal stuff. Of course, Peacemaker's origins would come to be revealed over the years, and there would be some revisions here and there, like introducing that a lot of the attitude came from rejecting his Nazi father, but also probably his best run of material would be working as a quasi-mentor for the Jaime Reyes Blue Beetle, accidentally possessing a database of the Scarab's knowledge that got sent into his brain, which was a retcon of why, at one point, he thought the voices of his victims were talking to him through his helmet. Still, not a bad start for the guy who has gotten more prominence thanks to James Gunn's use of the character. Next time, Secret Origins Month continues as we look at the first appearance of an important character, but whose beginnings are a bit convoluted. No, come along, Bork. Are you talking to me? No, my son is also named Bork. Hello, my friends. Please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell for notifications on new video releases. If you'd like to support future videos, you can check out my Patreon, buy merch from the store envy link in the description, or check out the t-shirts available from Teespring. Thanks for watching.